How to accurately diagnose your business loan broker problems without emotion. So guys, when something you expect to happen or you want to happen doesn't happen, our first human reaction is emotion, and it will be a negative one at that, right? And if we stay in that emotional state, and most of us tend to do that, and we make decisions whilst in that emotional state, is it any wonder things don't actually pan out as we want? Happens all the time, guys. You probably had it happen to yourself. So the trick is then to be rational, to be accurate, and kind of like Spock. Now, we can use what I'm going to discuss here in any life situation, but for this particular video, I want to focus on the common issues that we face in the early days as a business loan broker, because that's what we do, right? And I should introduce myself also for those that don't know me. I'm Gavin Burns, and if you want to know more about us and what we can do, you're going to find links in the description to this video. But let's get back to it. Typical problems like can't get leads, the leads I get are trash, I can't fund any deals, the lenders have screwed me over, my lenders' rates are too high, no one takes my offers, etc, etc, etc. If you are a new broker, I'm sure these will be all too familiar to you. These problems, however, often lead into more problems. Running out of time is a big one. Running out of money is another big one. I don't have any money is a big one. My mum, my dad, my wife, my husband, my neighbour's cat, you know, they all think that I should stop risking everything, that I need to go get a job or focus on a career. I need to take my responsibilities seriously, etc, etc, right? The first reaction to all of these problems basically is emotion. Most of us will go through this, or maybe you already are going through this if you're a business loan broker, but if we allow ourselves to get caught up in that emotion, it is impossible to accurately diagnose the real problems that we have to be solving. And if we don't solve them, at some point clearly we're going to hit that wall, we're going to come to a dead end, game over. So let me give you a simple example of what I mean here. I was actually chatting with somebody this week, and it's fair to say they are actually going through all of those problems that I've mentioned here, right, in this video. And credit to them, it isn't stopping them, right? They are moving forward and they're determined to make it all work, which is brilliant. And in this case, their mindset's strong and they're obviously determined to succeed, which is why I wanted to give them more help. But when chatting, right, it was also very apparent to me that the problems that they were actually focused on weren't the actual problems that they should have been focused on solving. And had we not spoken, they would have likely just carried on, maybe another few months, right, before the inevitable thing happened. He'd have got a job again because the family pressure, these outside pressures, this emotion, decreasing funds, no time, it would have just become too much. There is no way under the sun that anyone in that kind of emotion can perform well and think clearly. It becomes stifling, and the longer that it goes on, well, you know, eventually you're going to hit that wall, as I said. So let's dig into this a little bit more. Our conversation opened with them confirming that they were struggling, right? And actually, quick tip on that, even using the word struggle creates an emotion, and I'm always consciously personally of the words that I use. Anything that produces any type of negative emotion, I just won't say it. I don't want that in my psyche. Anyway, I asked what he was struggling with and was basically told that, you know, his lack of leads again, and also a lack of funding. He was and is under pressure financially from his family as well, and you know, he wanted to kind of solve the problem. He confirmed that he got this phone dialer, LLC, new website, and was working hard every single day. He had everything that he actually needed to be a success, yet nothing was actually happening for him. I asked what he was doing about it, right? What are you doing to solve the problems? Now his solution was to double down and use what he knew to get more leads. And in doing so, he hoped the problem would be solved. Such a common outcome. Another quick tip, guys. If you ever rely on hope, you're doomed, right? This comes back to accuracy. Hope is an emotional state of being. Being accurate, on the other hand, means that you have thought it through and you know the solution you have come up with is on the balance of probabilities going to work for you. Never rely on hope. It's a losing game, guys. Anyway, back to the story. He had identified his problems and he was getting to work on solving those problems. So what's wrong with that? Well, the issue here was the lack of accuracy, right? The lack of accuracy was because he was operating in this emotional state. family, finances, pressure. This has got to work, etc., etc., right? You can imagine that. The solution then was to get his head down and get to work harder, right? But his problem wasn't the lack of leads, guys. His problem wasn't that he wasn't funding. They're the obvious answers. Guys, they are just the results of the actual real problem. So quick tip here. The trick with actually being accurate is to first identify the obvious problem, right? But to also know that the obvious is not the actual problem, and therefore any solution that you come up with is not going to be the solution. So an easy way to do this is to challenge your solution. If you cannot explain to yourself why that solution is going to work, and you can't confirm that its probability of working is more than 50%, it's clearly not a solution, and you have not even identified the actual problem. Anyway, let's get back to this. In this case, the real problem was he didn't and doesn't know what he doesn't know. Therefore, he doesn't know how to actually get good leads. He doesn't know what is and isn't a good deal, and therefore is not funding anything. The solution then isn't double down and work harder and hope that it all works out in time. The solution is knowledge, specific knowledge that is lacking here. But that realization also creates a brand new problem. How the hell do I even get that knowledge, right? Do you kind of see where we're going with this and how this stuff works, guys? Accuracy cuts through any emotion. Now, you could argue his original solution of doubling down and, keeping at it would actually work. And if he had a long enough runway, without sort of life pressures and financial pressures and all that stuff, through trial and error at some point, he would probably work it all out. Each failure obviously creates a valuable learning opportunity after all. And I actually did that, but for me, a big reason it worked out, even though it was hard and I had a lot of pressure and stuff, is I had a lot of transferable skills. So when I failed, I could work stuff out and just make sure I kept moving forward. But in truth, I still wasn't being accurate. I should have actually done exactly what I'm advising here right now. Because even in my situation, the solution was a lack of specific knowledge. So first, identifying the problem as specific knowledge. The obvious question then is, how do I go get that knowledge? And the only way is from others who've already actually solved these problems, right? But then that immediately threw up another problem. How can I afford that? Because there's always these costs involved. And most here would simply stop there, right? Most listening to this now. I can't afford that, so I'll go do something else, or I'll just carrying on until eventually I either make it or I don't. And I want to dig in on that because I see this all the time, guys. Here's how I personally would look at that situation, having learnt this stuff the hard way. What is the cost of my time and the lost opportunity? Now, I know for a fact that trying to work it all out over time is going to cost me way, way more than whatever investment is needed to solve that lack of knowledge, that problem right now. So I would first establish who is the best person out there or company, whatever, to serve me with the knowledge, to give me that knowledge. I'm not going to have any emotional attachment to whatever the investment is from whoever I actually talk to. It could be 100k for all I care at that particular moment. I would want to then talk to as many different people first as I could. I would then want to assess who I felt could give me what it is I wanted. Therein lies the solution to the first problem. Now my problem is, how do I get the money, right? And look, we all have different sort of personal situations. When I first had to come up with some funds to invest that I didn't actually have, I got a part-time job to get the money. That was how I solved that particular problem. My point here is, if you're serious about what you are doing, a lack of funds is just an excuse. It's a poor mindset set in a foundation really of lack, right? Guys, look here, look. You're either committed to the future that you want or you aren't. It's basically a linear choice. Now, quick tip here is most folk really aren't that committed, and that's just the way it is. The question is, how committed are you? In this situation, we've come up with a solution. We've worked out a way for him to actually train with us that reduced the investment that he actually needed. The solution is based upon his belief in himself and our belief that we can help him get where he wants to be. And the point here is that had he not been accurate, or had he just decided that he couldn't afford it, which is still an emotional reaction disguised as a rational response, guys, his future as a loan broker was pretty much set in stone. It wasn't going to happen. But by being accurate and being committed to the future that he actually wants, his choices made solving the real problem are actually going to ensure that he does achieve the future that he wants. This, guys, is one example of how being accurate and not allowing emotion to lead you basically creates the right choices. Accurate choices, right, have a high probability of providing you with exactly what it is you want, or the outcome that you actually want. And that's really the purpose of this whole video, guys. I just want to kind of just show you, like, we're all going to react emotionally, okay? But you have to be consciously aware of that's what you've done. And then you've got to be aware of when or what that emotional state is and how you get rid of it. Because you cannot make any decisions, you cannot take any action or do anything until you've got rid of all of that and you're being rational about what's going on in front of you. And just remember, the obvious problem and therefore solution is generally not the actual problem or the solution that you want. And that's why so many of us go wrong, and we turn left when we should have turned right, or we should have carried on going, right? Being accurate, I promise you, it's going to speed up that trajectory to success. And it also actually forces you to ask hard questions of yourself and the situation that you're in. And a lot of the time, again, we're just conditioned, we're human beings, we're conditioned this way. We don't like the truth, but the truth is accurate. And that's really where you want to be. That dictates the reality that you live, right? So if you can be accurate with your problems, I promise you, you're going to get success at some point. With that said, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much.
To learn more about our 90-day risk-free promise, click the video in the upper left corner. And for another great video, click the one below that. And finally, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Just click the badge in the center of the screen and we'll see you on the next video. Above all, make it a great day.